I didn't expect the will reading to feel like a courtroom where my entire life was on trial. Yet the moment I stepped inside the lawyer's office, I felt judged. By the stiff leather chairs, by the heavy silence, by the family members who barely looked up when I entered. 3 years had passed since I last sat in a room with all of them together. 3 years since I stopped trying to explain myself. My mother's death still felt unreal. She had been my quiet refuge, the only one who saw through the noise and favoritism and told me I was enough. Losing her felt like losing my last witness. I chose a chair near the end of the table, smoothing my coat, breathing slowly. I wasn't here to fight. I was here to honor her, whatever the will held, approval or rejection. I had promised myself I would leave with dignity intact. The lawyer shuffled papers, clearing his throat. My sister Lara was still missing. That wasn't unusual. Lara believed the world waited for her, that every moment improved with her arrival. Growing up, she had always been the center, louder, prettier, sharper. I had learned early how to disappear beside her. Just as the lawyer prepared to begin, the door swung open. Laughter spilled in first, bright and careless. "I told you we wouldn't be late," Lara said, her voice cutting through the room like glass. She entered, wearing a confident smile and an expensive coat, her heels clicking with deliberate rhythm. On her arm was a man I hadn't seen in years, but whose face still lived in my memory like a scar, my ex. The room seemed to tilt. For a heartbeat, I couldn't breathe. He looked almost the same. Same hair, same self-assured posture, same smile that once convinced me I was loved. This was the man who promised marriage, then disappeared with excuses, the man who taught me how betrayal could sound like kindness. Lara noticed me then. Her smile sharpened. "Oh," she said loudly, "you came." A few heads turned. I felt heat crawl up my neck, but kept my expression neutral. "Of course she did," my ex added with a smirk. "Family obligations, right." Lara squeezed his arm, claiming him publicly, possessively. "I thought it would be nice if he came. After all, he knows the family." The implication hung in the air like smoke. She wanted me to feel small, to remember what I'd lost, to know she had taken something else from me, and enjoyed it. I said nothing. That silence bothered her more than anger ever could. We took our seats. Lara sat directly across from me, crossing her legs slowly, like she was posing for an audience. My ex leaned back, his gaze drifting toward me now and then, curious, almost searching. Did he expect tears? Regret. If he did, he'd be disappointed. The lawyer finally began, his voice steady, respectful. "We are here today to read the last will and testament of—" As he spoke, memories pressed in. Late nights with my mother, quiet conversations when she was ill, the way she'd squeeze my hand and whisper, "You're stronger than you think." Lara leaned forward suddenly. "You look tired," she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. "Life hasn't been kind, huh?" I met her eyes calmly. "I'm fine." She laughed softly. "Sure you are." The lawyer paused briefly, glancing at us, then continued. Inside, my heart was steady, not because I was unafraid, but because I knew something they didn't. They thought this was my humiliation. They thought I had come alone, and for now, I let them believe it. The lawyer's voice filled the room again, calm and measured, while the air around the table grew thick with expectation. I folded my hands in my lap, focusing on my breathing, on the steady rhythm of my pulse. Across from me, Lara watched every movement I made, like a predator waiting for weakness. She didn't have to wait long. As part of the estate, the lawyer said, "We must confirm a few personal details before proceeding." Lara's lips curved into a knowing smile. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "This should be quick," she said. "Some of us actually have places to be." My ex chuckled quietly beside her, then glanced at me. "You always hated formal stuff," he said, as if we were old friends sharing a private joke. I didn't respond. The lawyer looked up. "Marital status," Lara answered before I could. "Single," she said confidently. "Very single." A ripple of awkward laughter moved through the room. Someone coughed. I felt eyes on me. Pity mixed with curiosity. This was the moment Lara had been waiting for. The moment she could remind everyone that I was the sister who had been left behind. "You know," she continued, ignoring the lawyer, "I always worried about you. You were so sensitive, so dependent on people who never stayed." Her words were polished, rehearsed. She had practiced this cruelty. My ex leaned closer to her, his voice low but sharp. "Not everyone gets a happy ending." That one landed. For a second, old pain stirred memories of broken promises, unanswered calls, nights I'd cried wondering what I'd done wrong. I felt the urge to explain myself, to defend the woman I used to be, but I didn't. I straightened my back and met Lara's gaze. "Are we done?" Her eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected resistance. "Touchy," she said. "Guess I hit a nerve." The lawyer cleared his throat again, clearly uncomfortable. "Let's stay focused." He returned to the document, but Lara wasn't finished. "It's just sad," she said softly, shaking her head as if she truly cared. "Mom always worried about you. She used to say she hoped you wouldn't end up alone. That was a lie. And she knew it. Something inside me hardened not with anger but clarity. I realized then that Lara didn't want my inheritance. She wanted my shame, and she believed she already had it." The lawyer began listing personal effects, small bequests, charitable donations. Each item was another minute of anticipation, another chance for Lara to steal glances at me, waiting for me to crack. My ex shifted in his seat. "You're really quiet today," he said. "No speeches." I smiled faintly. I've learned when silence is better. He studied me then, confusion flickering across his face. The version of me, he remembered, would have been trembling by now, apologizing, asking for understanding. That woman was gone. The lawyer paused again. "Before we move to the primary beneficiaries," he said, "there is one more formality." Lara leaned forward eagerly. "Here it comes." He adjusted his glasses. "We need confirmation of spouses present, if applicable." Lara laughed out loud. "Spouses? That's generous." She looked straight at me. "You can't honestly expect us to believe." I felt it then. The shift, the quiet certainty rising in my chest. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply smiled. "Yes," I said calmly, "my husband is here." The room fell silent. Lara froze mid, laugh, her expression cracking. "What?" she whispered. I turned toward the door behind me, my heart steady, my hands no longer shaking. "This," I said softly, "is where things change." The door opened slowly, deliberately, as if time itself had decided to pause for the reveal. Every head in the room turned. Even the lawyer stood slightly from his chair, confused by the sudden interruption. He walked in with calm, unhurried steps. Daniel. He wore a simple dark suit, nothing flashy, nothing designed to impress, yet the quiet confidence he carried filled the room more completely than Lara's loud entrances ever had. He didn't scan the room or hesitate. His eyes came straight to me, and in that instant, the weight I'd been carrying for years lifted just a little. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said politely, parking. I stood, my chair scraping softly against the floor. "You're right on time." Lara stared at him, her mouth slightly open, disbelief draining the color from her face. My ex stiffened beside her, his smirk evaporating as he leaned forward, studying Daniel like he was a threat he hadn't anticipated. "This is my husband," I repeated, my voice steady. "Daniel." Daniel extended his hand to the lawyer. "Nice to meet you." The lawyer recovered quickly, nodding, "Of course. Please have a seat." Daniel moved to my side, placing a gentle hand on my lower back as he sat. It wasn't possessive, it wasn't performative, it was natural, like we belonged there together, like we always had. Lara let out a sharp laugh. "This is ridiculous," she said. "You're married, since when?" 3 years, I replied. Her eyes widened. 3. She turned to my ex, searching his face, but he looked just as stunned. "You never said anything," he muttered. I met his gaze calmly. "You never asked." That stung him more than anger ever could. Daniel remained quiet, observant. He didn't need to speak for me, he never did. His presence alone rewrote the narrative Lara had worked so hard to build, that I was unwanted, unfinished, alone. And Mom knew, Lara asked sharply. Yes, I said. She adored him. The lawyer cleared his throat and continued reading, but the energy in the room had shifted. The power Lara thought she held slipped through her fingers, replaced by something far worse, uncertainty. As the lawyer read, I caught my ex watching me, not with mockery now, but regret, the kind that comes when you realize the version of someone you underestimated has outgrown you. Daniel leaned closer, whispering, "You okay?" I nodded, better than okay. The lawyer reached a sealed envelope. "There is a letter," he said, addressed to both daughters. Lara straightened, confidence flickering back into place. Finally, the lawyer began reading aloud. My mother's words filled the room, warm and unmistakable. "To my girls, love is not measured by who stands beside you when life is easy, but who stays when it is not." My throat tightened. One of you chose loyalty, one of you chose pride. I hope time teaches the difference. Lara's smile vanished. My ex swallowed hard. The lawyer continued. "The primary residence and majority of the estate are to be inherited by—" He paused, checking the document. "And my younger daughter." A stunned silence followed. Lara shot to her feet. "That's not possible." Daniel's hand tightened around mine, steadying me as the room erupted in murmurs. The lawyer raised his hand calmly. "There are no errors." Lara looked at me then, not with cruelty but panic. And for the first time in my life, she was the one unraveling. I met her gaze gently. "This," I said softly, "is what happens when you underestimate someone who learned to survive without applause." The room didn't explode the way Lara expected it to. There were no raised voices, no dramatic arguments, no tears thrown for effect, just a thick, uncomfortable silence that pressed in from all sides. The kind of silence that settles when the truth lands and no one knows how to fight it. Lara stood frozen, her hands clenched at her sides. "This doesn't make sense," she said, her voice brittle. "I was here. I did everything." The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "The will is very clear." He reached for another envelope. "There is also a personal letter for you, Lara." Her confidence cracked completely. She snatched the letter and tore it open, eyes scanning frantically. I watched her face change, confusion giving way to disbelief, then something raw and wounded. My mother's handwriting had always been gentle, looping softly across the page. I knew those words hurt, not because they were cruel, but because they were honest. "You're enjoying this," Lara accused suddenly, looking at me. I shook my head. "No, I already did my grieving." Daniel squeezed my hand, grounding me as the lawyer continued listing final details: charitable donations, personal belongings, the formal closing of the estate. Each word felt like a door quietly shutting behind me. My ex stood abruptly. "So that's it?" he asked. "You just win." I looked at him then, really looked. The charm that once fooled me now felt empty. "This was never a competition," I said. "You just thought it was." He had no answer for that. Lara folded the letter slowly, her movements careful, like she might cut herself on the truth if she moved too fast. "You think this makes you better than me?" she whispered. "No," I said gently. "It makes me free." The lawyer announced the meeting adjourned. Chairs scraped against the floor as relatives stood, whispering, glancing between us. Some looked surprised. Some looked ashamed. No one met Lara's eyes. Daniel rose beside me, offering his arm. I took it without hesitation. As we walked toward the door, Lara spoke again, quiet this time. "You didn't deserve it." I paused, turning back just enough to meet her gaze. "Neither did Mom deserve to be disappointed," I said, "but here we are." Outside, the air felt lighter. Cleaner. I hadn't realized how much weight I'd been carrying until it was gone. Daniel exhaled slowly. "You were incredible in there." I smiled, resting my head briefly against his shoulder. I didn't need to be, I just needed to be honest. We walked down the steps together, the building behind us holding all the pain I no longer needed to drag forward. No applause followed, no grand celebration waited, and that was the beauty of it. Revenge hadn't come from humiliation or cruelty. It came from growth, from silence, from showing up whole instead of broken. Behind us, my sister was still standing in that room, surrounded by people, yet utterly alone. I felt no joy in that, only relief. As Daniel opened the car door for me, I glanced once more at the sky, thinking of my mother. Of the nights she'd whispered hope into my fears, of the strength she saw in me long before I saw it myself. "I think she'd be proud," Daniel said softly. I nodded. "I know she is." We drove away without looking back. And for the first time in my life, I understood something clearly. The sweetest revenge isn't proving someone wrong. It's living so well that their opinion no longer matters.